Yeah, so you're there.
You all should be set. So, Hannah?
Yeah.
This is in transformation for a potential like, massage space.
Okay, come on down. What are you doing with the transformation?
Parts of the walls.
Oh my God. Oh, she's going to jail. She's like, Joe.
So right now, Pierre's going to do a class at 10:30.
Oh, it's what's called?
He goes through physical movements, and then he does some philosophy discussion.
I know.
Does so
I'm too old.
I'm too old for that. Come up and join that class and just kind of sit and watch it. That's how it's done. It starts at 10:30 and then it ends at. All right, Jake. We're gonna have an hour meeting.
I was saying, Christopher, but I love the way you pray and what I'm saying. I wouldn't have thought of it, but it's, I like it. Actually, I was thinking, like that, I mean, sure.
In the team, like it's like the that was the other day, I can see it. I can see it past the apartment, I just, the minute I got up, I started opening.
You see,
They like,
how great.
yeah, they like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Where's that?
This is it.
Good morning, Maddie and Kara.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa.
See how it's nature.
Yeah. It's like from I found them on Sherwin Money. It's like color palette.
Oh.
I love all of the colors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
those
was really subtle, calmly. I like the other gray. Actually, my house is gray and yellow. It's a little more intense yellow.
It's normally the colors like gravitate towards the pastel, lighter colors are better.
They're more calming.
Yeah.
It's far away. It's far away. It's just one corner over.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That palm is a little old.
Oh, good morning. Can you hear me okay, Maddie?
It's hard to keep up with cold.
Yeah.
We like heat. And it's okay. I need to say it. I really like you.
Here.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, no.
So here.
Let's see, how do I do this?
Just let me know if you can hear me.
We can hear you now.
Okay. I normally call in on my phone. I'm on a laptop now, so I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes,
Sounds better.
we can hear you good. Nervous. I don't know if you can hear.
Okay, well, if you can hear me okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I just see maybe Heather is joining us. And then we have Raquel and Maddie, yeah? And Christopher and Kara, is that right?
Jacqueline is here.
Oh, okay. Jacqueline, okay, great. So we'll get started with just a short embodied practice. You can stand up and make space, and then please let me know if you can't hear me once I get a little further from my laptop. So make arm distance around yourself and your feet wider than your shoulders, and then just start to turn gently from the waist. Let your hip turn create the arm turn. And keep your feet rooted on the earth. So don't let your heels come up. Your legs are your roots, and you're creating strong, powerful roots. The arms are how we give and receive in the world. And oftentimes in the modern world, we get a lot of upper tension, upper back, neck, and shoulders. So just let your arms be free. And then anything from the last week you've been holding on to, just consciously exhale it out the mouth. We'll start to slow it down. Then building strength in your roots. So all the weight's in the back foot. Let your hands float in front of you. You should be able to lift your front knee, so there's no weight in the front leg. You're cultivating your own personal space. And then start to use your breath. So inhale energy comes in, that's called prana. Exhale energy comes out to the surface. So up the spine, out the arms to the hands. Inhale energy comes in. It's related to the space element called prana. Exhale is viyana, going away, related to the water element, or your circulation system. If you need to do any little adjustments to your skeleton to free up your joints, then go ahead and do that. And then other side, so pour the weight into your other root. When all the weight's in that leg, let your other leg come forward. And just little micro bounces help you to unlock the joints. You're rooting into the back leg. Should be able to lift your front knee without moving the rest of the body. These energy work or qigong postures are different than yoga postures in that the joints are never really held locked or straight. Rather, you're unlocking all of them. And then equal standing, step wider than your shoulders, cross below the wrist. So both the knees are bent. Turn your tailbone down, especially those of you that tend to have lower back problems. Turn your tail down. Almost round your upper back. Inhale into your own little space like an eggshell. And exhale, sit down and contract into that. The practices of yoga are designed to help me become free from old past habits, to be confident in my connection to the eternal, so that I may serve others and clean up what's mine to do here on the planet. But sometimes this last week we forgot. So just take a moment to recommit. Let go of selfishness. But then rise up and make a comfortable seat. A comfortable seat is whatever posture works for you. I live in the desert here, so the sun is blinding. Then double breath with tension, twice in the nose and tense the body. Gather into your spinal cord and brain. And twice out the mouth, relax. Twice in the nose and turn your eye gaze to the spiritual eye. And twice out the mouth, relax. Then unless one nostril is closed, we'll practice alternate nostril breathing. If you have one nostril that's closed, you can do Ujjayi breath instead. Without making any effort, allow the breath to get longer and smoother, and the gaps between the breath to naturally get longer. Final breath. And then both nostrils breathing. Then we'll make a short prayer. Can you still hear me okay? Yep. Thank you, Jacqueline. So you can take a moment to make your own prayer. Repeat after me. Heavenly Father, source of all energy in the universe, Divine Mother, she who receives it, transforms it, and nourishes me with it. All the great ones, bless me, that though I may barely understand thee, I am increasingly filled with your presence, a deep abiding sense of trust and confidence in life and in death. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So nice to see each of you. I'm going to be doing share screen now, and I'll trust that one of you will let me know if something starts to go wrong, okay? Today our topic is the Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutras are like a how-to manual, how to find God in this very lifetime. Your manual, which I've pulled up here, your teacher training manual, has some selections from the first chapter. And this is a brief overview. They're the key ones that I selected when writing the manual for a first level teacher training to get some familiarity with and to try to memorize. We're going to go through and just chant these, which is the traditional way of learning them. And when chanting, there's sometimes the funny thing of like, well, I don't know what these sounds even mean. But hopefully you can suspend that disbelief and just follow behind me here. Perhaps I need to make it a little bit bigger. So we're going to go through them here. You can just respond to me. Atta Yoga Anushasanam Yogash-chitta Vritti Nirodha Tada Drashtahu Svarupe Avastanam Vritti Sarupyam Itaratra. So these are the first 4 Yoga Sutra, and they describe what we're going to be talking about for the next 4 chapters. The Yoga Sutras are 4 chapters long, and the first chapter talks about samadhi. And samadhi is this beautiful concept which is difficult to translate into English, but it's when the mind is completely absorbed. And so we each get into that sometimes through artistic or creative endeavors, or I used to play a lot of sports, so athletics can also bring that. Being in nature can bring that. Certainly any kind of intimacy can bring that, whether it's a heartfelt moment with a friend or intimacy with a partner. Even just something that's completely captivating brings the sense of samadhi, where the mind is in full and total cognitive absorption. Here, the Yoga Sutra are telling us, you can again repeat after me, Atta Yoga Anushasanam, that union with God happens now. It's always in the moment, moment by moment. Then Yogash-chitta Vritti Nirodha. The second Yoga Sutra tells me that yoga or union is a process, and the process doesn't happen outside of me, it happens inside of me. And what it is it's a stopping back of the previous existences or the previous spinnings in my mind. And so you can picture yourself here watching some screen, but imagine that that screen was really dirty or had like, you know, some other channel playing at the same time. Like in my case, my daughter likes to watch Baby Shark, which if you don't know is the most popular thing in the world these days. And it goes, baby shark, baby shark, baby shark. So imagine you were experiencing this class with that in the background or all over the screen. It means that it's difficult to be in the present moment if I'm pulling forward things from the past, or if my way of looking is distorted because of the past. And this is what chitta vritti are. They're the spinnings in the field of awareness. And chitta means more than just the eyesight or the mind. It means the heart mind. It's my whole sense of palpating or feeling, my nervous system. And so anything that I experienced in my past will still be there. It's whether or not I've been able to digest it. The third Yoga Sutra says, Tada drashtahu svarupe avastanam. And this says what happens when I'm able to stop back the spinnings from my past. It says that then I, the seer, as drashtahu, in my own form, in my true form. Svarupa means the form of the self, the big S self, the holy sense of me. Then I, in the holy sense of who I am, stand apart. Avasta, away stand. Means that I can stand apart from the soap opera that might be going on around me and witness it, but stay in retention of a sense of inner happiness and bliss, trust, sense of safety, security, even joy. The fourth Yoga Sutra says, vritti sarupyam itaratra. And this says, otherwise, itara means other, and tra means place. So the other place, if I'm not standing away from the spinnings, then I'm standing in them. Vritti sarupyam means conformity with the drama or conformity with the previous existences. So this is a really straightforward and profound introduction to human consciousness, the first 4 Yoga Sutras. But then there's, well, how do I do that? Like, what do I do? The entire second chapter is dedicated to sadhana, or practices. And in that, there's the introduction of the concept of Ashtanga Yoga. So I'm going to move the page here. And your description of Ashtanga Yoga in your manual both gives a picture, which I think is on the previous page, but who knows for sure. Here we go. There's a picture of 8 concentric rings. This is, of course, imperfect because it's not just a 2-dimensional picture, but it's a better picture than a tree with 8 limbs. The most outer practices are the way I relate to others and the environment. The next internal or closer to me practices are how I treat myself. Then I learn postures. Asana practice is movement with the breath, and it helps me to become comfortable and happy no matter where I am. Often in the West, it's just seen as flexibility training, but it's way more than that. And the posture practices themselves can range, widely from a very athletic and dynamic practice to very subtle and small movements. Then there are practices for cultivating and developing internal energy awareness. Breathing practices are certainly a part of that, but so are things like learning acupressure, marma points, craniosacral therapy, the subtle sense of the body, even learning conscious ways to rest and relax are a part of pranayama. Pratyahara are directing the sense energy inward in toward my nervous system. And then there are the 3 inner rings, which all have to do with more subtle practices with the nervous system. Being able to hold my awareness deep within, being able to follow a flow, and then no longer being a watcher, just having become completely absorbed. Now, you don't need to do these all sequentially. They're just all done as a part of the evolution of human consciousness in a body. The Yoga Sutras 4 chapters, as a first level teacher trainee, focusing on just some of the concepts in the first 2 chapters is plenty enough. In fact, most yoga teachers in the Western world have very, very little awareness or even knowledge of the first 2 chapters. So you would be far ahead of the industry standards, just having some ability to speak fluently about these first 2 chapters. The 3rd and 4th chapters really require more lifelong learning and practice, as they talk about more and more subtle things. But certainly reading and being aware of the whole almost 200 Yoga Sutras is a good practice. We'll go back to your manual and the sort of core essential Yoga Sutras that I chose for you here. But before I do that, I want to see if anyone has any questions about these first 4 Yoga Sutras or what I've covered so far. It's a bit of a challenge teaching on Zoom. I don't have a real good sense of connection, so maybe one of you can wave at me so I don't feel so alone. Thank you. All right. All right, so we're moving forward here. And the 12th Yoga Sutra gives us our first prescription of what to do. So I might be aware that I've got some inability to concentrate, or I've got things from my past that are bothering me and they're showing up as people in my present. But what do I do about it? Well, the 12th Yoga Sutra gives us an idea. You can again repeat after me. Abhyasa, Vairagya, Abhyam, Tad, Nirodha. And you may remember that word Nirodha from the 2nd Yoga Sutra. It means that internal stopping back. Tad means those. So the internal stopping back of those. How do I stop back the drama? How do I deal with suffering from my past? Well, I need abhyasa, which is a practice. And I also need vairagya, which is the state of non-preference or non-attachment to results. And this concept is very central to the Bhagavad Gita, which is the other text most commonly learned at the beginning of yoga life. It's not really the Hindu Bible, but some people refer to it that way. Hi, you want to come here and say hi? Mrs. Heather's there. Do you see her? Yeah.
I see her.
You see her? Yeah. She has some other friends that are taking class with Daddy. Can you wave bye-bye to Mrs. Heather and other friends?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So the Bhagavad Gita, the central message is that we need to act. We can't just hide from the world or pretend that we're going to be monastics, but rather we need to act in a way that's aligned with the higher sense of myself, but with non-preference or non-attachment to the results. So I can't really choose what's going to happen in the outer world. Yes, my daughter has a one-pointed mind for her good friend Heather. Baby girl, can Daddy finish teaching his class? And then we'll play later. And Mrs. Heather will see you next week, okay? So I need to have a state of non-preference. And I need to have a practice. You all right now are learning how to guide people through a nice 1-hour ritual that includes some devotion, some breathing techniques, and a lot of physical postures. And frequently we'll see people show up with a lot of preference and attachment to how that practice, might perform. There's often even for me, I still feel some sense of judgment when my mobility or my strength isn't what I wish it was. And so the teaching of non-preference or non-attachment is guided by breath cues. So as you all are learning to teach people how to move physically, the big difference in this sort of exercise form that you're teaching is that they're to be doing things that follow their own breath. So we'll do one now. So you can just inhale the way you are, start to exhale and turn to your right. Let the inhale bring you back to center. With the exhale, start to turn to your left. Keep doing that process at your own now. Follow the exhale to the end and then stay empty for a little bit. When you're ready to inhale, it'll bring you back to center, where you might pause, then go. One more cycle. Then at the center line, take a full in and out breath without twisting. So that process of exploration is an inner exploration. And it's self-guided because I'm following my own breath. But when I teach it in a group format, I need to keep good timing, good pace. I need to have some awareness of the group. And eventually, with confidence, I might be able to work with an individual while teaching a group without losing my timing and my pace. And so that's what you all are doing. But throughout it all, I can't lose a sense of myself. Just this morning, before I logged in to teach this class, I became aware, knowledgeable that my grandmother's going to probably pass away today. And so it creates some disruption in my field because I have a lot of unprocessed sadness that I wasn't able to see her again. She's a huge guiding light in my spiritual life, in my whole life. So when I started the class, I made sure that I did something that would help me settle into my own higher sense of self. And I'd said a prayer that in part was open to all of you, and your life experience, but also covered what was happening for me. And that's the art of teaching on a weekly basis. As a teacher is, I can't make it about me, but when I need to be the one that puts on the temporary clothing to lead the class, which is just temporary, we're all co-equals here. You know, I'm just maybe a little bit older than Maddie and been through enough suffering in this life to have found some patterns that work. I might be just a little bit more stable than Christopher in that I've had a place to work for many years that's my own. In some ways, it's a little easier for me than Raquel or maybe Jacqueline, in that I started family life later, or Raquel's doing all of this in a second language. I don't know Kara very well, but what I do know is that she's a real dynamic woman that I have no doubt will be powerfully leading groups. And so when it is your turn, and I say all of this because we're all co-equals here and it's just my turn to put on the teaching clothes. But I share a process that's meaningful to everyone, but perhaps covers what I need in order to land in my own sense of deep peace and deep safety. And it's not wrong to have emotional expression as a teacher either, I should mention that. But anyway, we have practices, and then I have a state of non-preference, vairagya. And the cool thing about the Yoga Sutras is that as soon as something's named, it's generally then described. So we're going to move on to the 14th sutra. Does anyone have a question or a comment? All right. Satu Dirghakala Nairantarya Satkara Asevata Dridha Bhumihi. Those of you that have been around the yoga world for a while may recognize Bhu as a part of the Gayatri mantra. Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. O earth, the sky, and heavens. So Bhu means earth. And here it's saying that a practice, abhyasa, becomes dridha bhumihi, becomes firmly grounded. Or I become firmly grounded or firmly established as my practice. So like, I know Christopher practices a lot of yoga. It's become a huge part of who he is. In fact, I'd venture to guess that it's become sort of his identity as who he is. So a practice becomes, I become grounded as my practice. I'm no longer Pierre, some Caucasian male with a French name, 48, American, mostly heterosexual, you know, father, husband, whatever I am. All those things are temporary. I become firmly grounded as a yogi, someone who deeply, deeply tastes and experiences the oneness of God and is in love with the practices that bring me to that experience. But here it's saying that I become firmly grounded as a practice or in my practice when it's done dirgha kala, for a long time. Nairantarya, without interruption. Anta means an end, so it doesn't have an end. So it doesn't work to like, you know, binge on 3 hours of yoga practice and then just skip for the next 2 months. What works a lot better is to just do 5 minutes of yoga posture practice every morning. So an essential 5 minutes of yoga would just be those core warm-ups that you all do, and maybe the half moon series. But practice also needs to be satkara. Sat means what is, or truth, or reality. And kara comes from krit, like karma or kriya. Krit means an action. So it needs to be something that is truth-bearing. It needs to bring me to the truth. It needs to bring me to what is. It can't be just any practice. It needs to be one that brings me to awareness of reality. And then it needs to be sevata. And seva means service. I think you all in Indy did some service. My entire 10 years of Santosha has been a service, and there are still times when I play the human card, like, oh, woe is me, I wish this business would actually make some money or something like that. But the gifts of the service that I've received from opening a school and all of the contributions it's made to all of the lives, when I look back at what I did with my lifetime, I'm not going to have any regrets. And I don't have any regrets on a daily basis of what I do for my career. And that's an incredible feeling. Service to others is truly, truly the reason that we come. And it's difficult for those of us in natural health care because it can easily be confused with codependence, which is a real problem. So don't serve others because you're trying to get your love needs met. Just serve others because you love God so much. But in this case, it's saying that a practice needs to be served. I need to be at service to my own practice. And I need to approach it from all directions. As a prefix, which means from all directions. I was very physically gifted and mentally gifted. I was the best at all the sports I played in my growing up years, and I was a valedictorian National Merit Scholar person. But I had a deep sense of emptiness anytime I went up to win an award because I knew the other kids were just as talented and many of them worked a lot harder than I did. I just had things that came easy to me. I never really learned to truly be of service, and I still struggle with it today. Welcome, Stephanie. Nice to have you. We're talking about the 14th Yoga Sutra, which is the definition of practice. And sevata describes it as a practice from all directions. So though I was physically gifted, I became really in love with hot yoga when I was in my late 20s. I'd already been practicing Tai Chi for a long time. Excuse me. And already did several forms of body work, massage therapy, Thai massage, acupressure, craniosacral therapy, barefoot shiatsu. But I'd become injured by the cold working in San Francisco in organic produce. And I had injuries from my sports world. So hot yoga felt incredible. And not only that, there was this mystery, like this amazing feeling of the breathing practices. And I even felt called to the Sanskrit chanting, and I didn't really know why. But not long into my yoga career, my body completely broke down. So much so that I could no longer walk. I had a nervous system disorder that wasn't easy to diagnose. Now I'm pretty sure that it was just a bad neck injury from my childhood that became sort of an open sore as I started doing really athletic Ashtanga Vinyasa yoga. But at the time, nobody could really diagnose it. But what was happening is that I every step was like hitting my funny bone, and I got uncontrolled shaking. And so I'm bringing this up to you because at that point, I could have given up on yoga. I could have given up on my practice, but instead that one direction, or the only couple directions with which I was approaching yoga, I realized that they weren't serving me, that I needed to serve my practice from other directions. So it's because of this severe nervous system disorder where not only could I not walk, but I actually couldn't control my pee. I just peed on myself. I was incontinent. So this is like incredibly embarrassing as a yoga teacher, right? Or even trying to function. I also couldn't sleep. My nervous system was so badly inflamed that I couldn't sleep. There were other things happening at the same time. I was also becoming aware that I was a very codependent person who tended to get involved intimately with women who were either addicted to drugs or in some way really in the middle of a deep healing crisis. And I was easily playing like rescue ranger or whatever role I thought I was. To the outer world, I looked like the healthy one or the good one, but I was just as in process and in suffering as whomever else I was dating. And I also had a roommate who I didn't really know that well, who I'd taken in as a friend of a friend, who then took his own life in my apartment. So all of this stuff's not really separate. It's just different layers of a big soap opera that's all happening together at the same time, right? And I hope it doesn't sound too intense for those of you listening, but I know that those of you that have been around enough have had similar confluence of events in life. It was so bad that even the welcome sign, that was a beautiful ceramic welcome sign, fell off my door and broke. Everything was just falling apart. But rather than give up, I started to approach my practices from other directions. And it's from this period in time where I became really dedicated to devotion and cultivating a sense of turning my life over to something higher and to someone higher, to an aspect of the divine that actually came into a physical body that I could count on as good enough. And this is the idea of a guru, or the idea of a Jesus Christ, or a lineage. And I didn't want any part of that when I was at that age, because I'd been around kind of some cult-like experiences, and I just didn't want to be joining anything. But it's from that period in time I also started to learn Sanskrit and chanting and playing the harmonium and singing, which I was not gifted at all. And to this day can still bring some sense of trepidation to me. Like the other night was Mahashivaratri, where it's the great holy night to the Holy Spirit. And I called in through Zoom, which is nerve-wracking enough, but then I'm the only like American at the Hindu temple, other than Heather, who also comes. So thanks for that, Heather. And I needed to lead bhajans, these songs, you know? And so it was nerve-wracking. I was tired, I hadn't slept well, but I did it. And I felt incredible from having done the 2.5-hour goofy, you know, listening to each of us sing our own songs in our own living rooms, devotional practice. But I would have never done that if I hadn't been open to approaching my practice from any direction. And that's the point of asevita. That spirit of life that you each feel, where you feel something incredible bubbling inside of you. It doesn't matter what you do. It can be equally experienced just sitting on a sidewalk, looking at little glistening pieces of rock. Or maybe you sing, or maybe you do something physical. But there needs to be a sense of, I'll do it whatever it takes. I'll approach it from whatever direction. And that's what a practice is. A practice is that firm commitment to becoming close to God, or that oneness in my nervous system. And I'll do whatever practices are needed in order to get there. And perhaps even the ones I'm most averse to are the ones that I'll most wholeheartedly get to put myself into. And that's the way it was for me with singing and leading chants in front of others. The next Yoga Sutra describes what is non-attachment. And it says, you can repeat after me, drishta, anushravika, vishaya, vitrishna, vitrishnasya, vashikara, sangya, vairagyam. And here we've defined vairagyam as non-attachment, but remember that raga means preference or coloring. And vit means away from, so viraga means away from preference or away from coloring. Raga is also a particular musical interlude. Raga is also when the woman is going of hormonal years is shedding her menses. So it's a particular flavor or time or coloring. And here, or it can mean attachment. And here I'm non-attached. And the description is that I am declaring mastery and a non-thirst. Trishna means thirst. So vitrishna means away from thirst for objects that I have either seen or heard before. And this is a huge statement. Being willing each day to not be attached or to come to my practice, to come to my daily life, not clinging to things that I've experienced or heard of in the past. And those of you that are here, a lot of you are teaching yoga postures, and you'll experience this like maybe in yoga practice, like when you go to forward bend and you're like, well, yesterday I could touch my toes. So today I'm going to make myself touch my toes, right? That's not non-attachment. That's a lot of attachment. That's a lot of preference. And the same thing happens with meditation. But yesterday I reached this incredible sense of inner bliss. Afterwards, I felt amazing, like I could go out and do anything. Today I meditated and all I did was think about what a jerk my spouse is. Well, the point isn't what comes. The point is the process. I have to have trust that it's the process, not the end result. And so when I go and I have a really muddy meditation, you know, like where I'm like, gosh, I ate all the wrong foods and maybe I shouldn't have had a beer with my buddies when I played golf either, you know. But actually that day is probably the most important one for me to meditate, because even though the water or my field of awareness still seemed a little bit mucky or muddy, it's sure a whole lot clearer than it was before I started. And this is the way to approach not just our practices, but the daily life, to go out there as if I'm an explorer, right? I'm going to explore this incredible new country called today. But that's not the way we live our lives. So often we go and we have the same people that we see and the same job and the same whatever. And so we miss the beauty of the moment that's available. Now, having children does help with this, by the way. So, Adi, I'm directly looking at you here. Because children bring us back to the moment. But it's the way I need to live my life anyway. And if I'm going to be a father, which I am, again, another baby's on the way, I need to have done enough in my own nervous system that I don't get angry at the moment that's coming. In fact, I can just let go of whatever my preference was for what we were going to do, and instead enjoy what I could see through my daughter's eyes. And so that's how I go hiking now. And it bothers some of the other parents that we go with because they wish that we would stick with them because they really like us. But when I just follow what she wants to do, I discover all kinds of amazing things that I would have just walked past. And that's the way each of you I know has also lived your life at times. There are days you've been right in the middle of your same regular day, but you've been able to be present as you drove to work, or been able to be present as you were standing in line at the grocery store. And it brought you so deeply into the moment that nothing else was needed. And that's what each of us is trying to achieve in the human life. We're trying to get back to that childlike moment-to-moment awareness, not to be clinging to some idea of the way life should be. So these definitions are at the beginning of your manual. Right now, early in your yoga career, I'd prefer when people ask you about things that you just guide them back to the Sanskrit texts. So when someone asks you, what is vairagya? You can just say it is drishta, anushravika, vishaya, vitrishnasya, vashikara sangya, vairagyam, and then say, basic description of each of the words. That's still the best way to do it, many decades of teaching yoga. I'm going to do 3 more yoga sutras and then we'll do question and answer for the last 30 minutes. I'm going to switch over though to this other part of the manual, which is in your Sanskrit folder. For those of you that have done a little bit more Sanskrit training, it's important that you continue to try to build your awareness of the characters written in Devanagari, which is a much more perfected script. We need to eventually, as yoga teachers, if you're in this for a long time, you need to get rid of these English letters. But for now, almost all of you need them, and that's okay. So here we have that second Yoga Sutra again. You can look in the red where I've built in the syllable meter for you and respond to me. Yogash-chitta vritti nirodha, which is saying that union with God is this internal stopping back of the spinnings in my field of awareness or existences from the past. Chitta means the heart mind, not just your eyesight or your thoughts. And vritti is not just a spinning, it's an existence. It's anything that's been. It's even a choice. And that's what we do in life, we choose. So don't try anymore, don't want to, don't like to, choose. I'm going to fast forward here, but your manual for learning these and for learning Sanskrit gives you the red, which has syllable meter. Big and bold means emphasized. And light and little means that it's lagu or light syllable. And it gives you meter. So built into Sanskrit is not only the perfection of mouth position, but also musical meter. Sutras are built so that you'll know that something's missing, especially when they're chanted in some kind of meter. Like the Bhagavad Gita is chanted in a meter so that you'll know, I'll know if I'm missing a word because the song will be incomplete. But even in the way the Yoga Sutras are constructed, they're built so that everything's compacted down so you remember it. The first part of that is called sandhi, or the union between words. So yogaha chitta becomes yogash chitta. And this learning and why it's useful for you even at the beginning of your yoga career is that it's mathematical and organic. So it's not just pure linear mathematics like a Cartesian grid worldview. It's an organic kind of mathematics according to the symmetry of which life is created. And that's how Sanskrita is made. So here it's Sanskrita is teaching us yogaha chitta. The value of ah is that it has a breath in the end. Well, there's a breath sound at position 2, ch, 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 where chitta is, that it can change to. So it becomes yogash chitta. So decoding the sandhi is a useful puzzle for the mind. Even if you're not mathematically inclined, learning these kind of things will help you with your own mind and help bring organization to your own thoughts. There's also a powerful coming home into the palate that Sanskrit brings, so that someone who grew up tone deaf, I couldn't hear my own sounds, I started to be able to hear them. I started to be able to identify mouth positions and feel comfortable in my own mouth and my own sounds. Then the yellow are just definitions you can get off of any online dictionary. And it's useful to get a few different ones because they're flavors to the words. We can't one-to-one relate Sanskrit to English. Sanskrit is an ancient code. We have no idea how old it is. It's designed for inner experience and finding liberation in human life. English is a colonial language that swallows words from other cultures so that it can have power over them. It has no organization. We can't even organize the way that we do our alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F. Why didn't we keep going with phi? Like, why did it have to change to F? And why is the letter G not G? The letter G, why isn't that saved for J? It doesn't make any sense. The English alphabet makes no sense. And trying to learn English is difficult because there's no rhyme or reason to it. The problem with that is that when kids grow up having to learn to spell words in English, they're taught that what the felt sense of what they feel isn't true. Even the word learn, there's no E or A in the feeling of learn. Fortunately, in the modern era, text messaging is kind of destroying English spelling, which I'm a big fan of. But anyways, you go through your manual. This is what those different parts are. In the green, I'm teaching you little roots and prefixes that are a part of learning Sanskrit as the years go on. Ni means internal or close to me, like there's yama, niyama. So yama are the codes of conduct around others in the environment. Niyama are the ones toward myself. Here we have nirud, and that becomes nirodha. So I'm checking or preventing things close to me. And then a blue is a translation. So real quick, I'm going to fast forward here to these last three that we were going to cover. Sorry for the spinning. Just have to imagine that you're taking your roller coaster ride for the day. Here we go. You can follow along in the black and orange here. Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita, Rupa, Anugamat, Sampragyataha. So now we've moved on. We did define a practice. So if I want to find union with God, the moment-to-moment bliss, and overcome my past karma, overcome my past sufferings, I need a regular practice. I need what is called abhyasa or sadhana. I need a practice. I can't just rest on my innate abilities. I need something that is going to always be clarifying me, always be clarifying me. Those are practices. And they're different. You don't need to do asana practice. Just the devotional practices of going to temple or church are good. Pranayama practices and meditation are considered the highest. But any practices work, but they need to be truth-bearing. I define practices, and then I defined non-attachment or non-preference. Now I'm defining nirodha, that inner stopping back practice or process. And here what's said is that these processes start as vitarka, or a particular kind of thought process, like inhale and fill up, exhale and empty. So that's a thought, really. I'm saying words and you all are thinking about it. And if I keep doing it, inhale rises, exhale descends, it'll start to turn into vichara, a particular investigation or a particular procedure of investigating or a particular energy feeling. And as I keep doing it, this vichara or energy exploration will start to turn into ananda, a sense of bliss. And that'll then turn into asmita, which is a sense of I-ness. I start to identify as something more than this physical shell or more than this temporary existence. I see behind the curtain to the interconnectedness of incarnations and lifetimes. These are called rupa or forms, and they are sequential, anugamat. And they are cognized, sampragyataha. So a teaching leads to a feeling or an investigation, which leads to a bliss, which leads to a further or deeper sense of I-ness. This is the process of nirodha. The next one we're covering is the 20th one. And sorry, I'm going a little faster, but you can again follow along in the black with a little bit of orange here. Shraddha, virya, smriti, samadhi, pragya, purvaka, itaresham. Now we skipped a couple. In between, it talks about what happens when a being's not actually in a human body. And that's a little too esoteric for our talk today. So here what it's saying is for the others. That means us, the ones that are in bodies. This process of nirodha has to start with faith. Shraddha means faith. And this is, I find, quite ironic in the Western world because so many people that are drawn to yoga are people who have given up the religion of their childhood. So even second, third generation Indians I teach are oftentimes like not really that into the sort of puja forms of what we would call Hinduism. But actually I need to return to faith. I need to have faith. It's not through some liberal, rational worldview that I'm going to find this oneness or the sense of God. I need faith. And faith itself is not fully rational. Faith is actually, in a way, irrational. Faith is having the courage to act even when I'm afraid. Faith is believing in something even though I can't see it. And so faith is essential. In fact, I don't know if Kathy's rejoined you all, but she may occasionally share joking stories that I actually listen to K-Love, to Christian radio, because I love the faith-based songs. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So faith is important. And faith then gives me virya, which is the courage to act. The strength and power inside. And virya then leads to smriti or memory. The memory that I've actually done this high road before. And it leads to samadhi. So I'll backtrack. Smriti, right now, each of you that's on this call, it's no accident. There was something about Santosha or me or Kathy or this whole whatever that seemed familiar to you. And that's what brought you to start investigating it. And hopefully through the practices, you'll increasingly find samadhi, cognitive absorption, where there's no you, the doer, the act being done, and the process. They've all become one and the same. You're in the flow, you're in the zone of your life. You're going down the river. And this then leads to pragya, and pragya is that which fills me up, divine insight, like God is talking directly to you. And these are purvaka, they are sequential, one after the other, one follows the other. But the journey starts with faith. I'm just going to briefly mention the 23rd Yoga Sutra, which gives us the shortcut. You can repeat after me. Ishvara,
Ishvara,
Pranidhana,
Pranidhana,
Pranidhanat
Pranidhana
va.
va.
Va means or. It says, I can do all these things, or I can completely align with the Holy Spirit within, which is then described as this devotional sound, which is then described as the sound Om in the background, which is then comprising all songs and all chanting that are devotional in nature. So it's saying that actual sense of devotional chanting, which is drumming in many cultures, the heartbeat, which is singing, which is playing a flute over the canyon if you're a Native American in the Southwest. This is the fast route. With that, we're going to take a short water break, water in and water out, and come do questions in 2 or 3 minutes. So come right back.
It was hard. Yeah, Yeah, so she passed the 1st of February on the very hard one. Because the process was so long. And it was really hard to see her, meet her body. Even though she wasn't there, it's hard to process that image. Yeah, of course. I kind of tried to stay connected with the spiritual part of it because I was the relationship class and then after that we just relax and just eat.
Hi, Pierre.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Pierre. This is Hannah.
Hannah's here.
I talked to you on the phone like a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Come here.
Nice to see you, Hannah.
You.
I'm rocking my 1980s gold rim glasses today.
They're very cool.
I couldn't find my other ones, so. We're going to be doing some question and answer here. You're welcome to stay, Hannah, and even ask questions if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
On this call, we have some couple of people from other areas, and then Kara, who's doing the training there in Indianapolis, but isn't on site. So we've really adapted how we do things during the COVID era. But in person is definitely the preference, and as you've been attracted to, I myself, I really enjoy best the one-on-one interactions and the being in people's company, and believe most that gardening needs to be hands-on. So, and that can also be in the company, the physical company of others. But technology does allow us to have some needs for further community. So we're here now for questions. And we covered that introduction to the Yoga Sutras, the first chapter. We talked about the importance of having a practice, some practice that's regular, and it needs to be truth-bearing. And I need to be willing to approach it from all angles. I can't just narrowly go to my same church all the time and play my same role. I actually need to be willing to do all the different practices and approach practices from every angle. And when I do it, I need to have non-preference or non-attachment to the results. I need to trust that the process itself is clarifying. And we define nirodha, the stopping back, that inner practice. Where do I find God? I find God inside through stopping back the imprints from my past so that I can see clearly moment to moment. And the journey starts with faith. And then ultimately, the Yoga Sutras give us that devotional practices, singing and chanting, are considered the fast route. But now you all can ask me questions about anything, including like, I've had diarrhea for 3 days and don't know what to do. So with that, please ask me anything that you'd like to about your students, your clients, you know, people that you're working with one-on-one.
Pierre, I have a question. You said that the practice should be continuous, and even if you do a short practice every day we should do at least a short practice. What will be the posture? Because you're right, it's a process. We start from warm up and then intensity, and then again we relax. But in a short period of time, what will be the posture to accomplish that process?
So if I heard you correctly, Raquel, you're asking if I need to shorten the practice, what would be the process? What
Yeah.
should it look like? Because reality is many of us don't have time for our class. Our class is a huge luxury to be able to have 1 hour. Plus, what if I have to drive here and there? So the practices are constructed generally according to age and life circumstance, Raquel. In your case, you are close to my age and you work hard job, very physical job, you know, and you have to interact with with clients. You have people who are flawed sometimes and imperfect in the way they communicate, you know. So and you're meeting them at their own home, so they have a sense of entitlement, right? You know, so it can be very difficult to navigate. So if I were to design 5-minute practice for Raquel, it would meet you as a woman at your age in your life circumstances. I would have you probably do like 3 or 4 minutes of warm-ups on the floor, like abdominal curls and crossovers, maybe, you know, moving cat-cow. Depend on how your GI tract is doing, but if GI tract was irregular, I would make sure you did a few of the belly back bends like cobra, you know, serpiento. Lo dije bien?
¿Qué dice?
Then, you know, then I would have you do like alternate nostril breathing and close your ears for a few breaths. Then in between job sites, I would have you do some one chant for each day, you know? You can have that on your music player or whatever. It can be even if you want to do like rosary prayer in Espanol or something. It doesn't need to be any Sanskrit, this or that. And I want to make sure all of you, especially newer, know that you're not learning Sanskrit to try to listen to these, you know, only Sanskrit chants. It's better actually if you have something that wakes up your heart from the inside, and preferably is from your own, you know, faith-based background or your own bloodline. What's the next question? Hi, Stephanie.
I have a question, Pierre. Hey, everybody. So I did an Ayurveda consult with Pierre yesterday, and I had a couple follow-up questions I might ask real quick.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, Audie and I have been eating sunflower oil because we kind of like the taste a little better than sesame. Is sunflower for any certain dosha?
Yeah, so one of the things with oil is how can you cook with it and how can you take it raw? And then what qualities? We're always asking what kind of qualities does a substance have? So sunflower oil is somewhat cooling by nature. It's not as heating. So that's why sunflower oil is sometimes used for pitta-based, fire-type-based massage oils. But the taste is nice. And you live in Texas now, so it's more appropriate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not something that offers the thickness, sorry, and the ability to carry nutrients as deeply as sesame oil does.
Okay.
Which is why sesame oil is used to deliver things more deeply in the body, and why sesame oil is used as the topical carrier oil in Ayurveda for carrying more herbs and to keep them on the skin longer and to let them seep in deeper. Sesame oil is thicker, it's a heavier grade oil, and it can take higher heat. Nothing particularly wrong though. Sunflowers are these beautiful, hello, I'm here. Right? And they're prolific. They drop so many seeds, What's your next question?
So I ate ginger, garlic, and the seeds that you shared yesterday, cooked in some oil in my dinner last night, and I really liked it. But I was wondering, is it possible to do too much, or, I
Yeah,
mean,
of
obviously we're
course.
coming out of winter, but.
Of course. So you always need to be looking at your cause and effect. So you look at, during my daily routine, how is my bowel movements in the morning? Are they coming? What's the consistency? Are they too loose? Are they dry pellets? Dry pellets means vata is high. Loose stools means pitta is high. You wouldn't tend to have kapha imbalance, but that's when they come like a full bowel movement, but you miss a day sometimes, or they have mucus in them. But with the immediate cause and effect, I was talking to Stephanie about wanting to return to vegetarianism in specific. And the challenge with being a vegetarian in the United States is that we don't have grandma, or I hate to sound sexist, but it usually was grandma or some woman cooking on a regular basis for us in the morning, so that all of us had a nice lunch, a very full-bodied, vegetarian lunch. And the other problem is that a lot of even people that know how to cook beans well or vegetarian food well don't have as much time, like fermenting the beans to make idli dosa batter makes them more digestible. But in Stephanie's case, I was talking to her about the importance of actually tempering beans, and you're making some kind of digestive fire to help your fire, break down bean content. And so for that, that's why you take seeds like coriander, cumin, fennel, mustard, sesame, even cardamom if you want, and you pop those seeds at the beginning. Ajwan seeds, she's also using. You're popping the seeds and you're infusing the oil at the beginning of the cooking process. Then you're adding other fire building things like onions and garlic and ginger and tomatoes, which are all pitta acid, right, substances. All of that's to help you actually break down and be able to eat the beans. But how would you know that you were doing too much? Well, in your case, you might have inflammatory reaction in your guts or even in your face or your tongue. But probably, in your case, we want not so many chili peppers, right? You don't need like strong, like people with more earth types, they need more chili peppers. For you, like fresh ginger is better. And I can't cover all of it, so I'm just giving you concepts, but fresh ginger is good because it's actually has a sweet vipaka or after effect, whereas the dry ginger powder is really pungent and really drying. And you're going to learn that as you navigate, cooking and returning. Now, I also mentioned to Stephanie, like, well, maybe vegetarianism is a great idea, but what if I want to still stay light but eat a little bit of animal flesh? Then something like sushi is really great for Stephanie and her body type. And then with sushi, that's why they have tamari and wasabi there. Those are Agni builders to help you be able to take that on and also deal with any potential pathogens that might be present. So it's also there in Japanese food. The Japanese culture just went about it a slightly different way. And based on your past of living in Florida, being the one of the three sisters who got the really thin body frame, probably, eating at least a little bit of fish will be easier, or at least staying with eggs. And the last thing to say is that ghee, since I touched on oils, ghee, the clarified butter, is so much more rich in terms of its mineral spectrum, whereas sunflower oil will be here, coconut oil will be here, avocado oil will be here. They're just a little narrow bandwidth of nutrient content, but ghee is so much more comprehensive And that's why it's considered by far the best. And when you're making ghee, where the butter comes from is super important. And that's the problem with American dairies, is even organic milk comes from like 10,000 cows, and then it goes to Horizon or Organic Valley or whatever in some giant big vat. You know what I mean? Like you're breastfeeding from
Yeah.
10,000 moms, you know? Traditionally, your cow was with you, digested the elements where you lived for you. And then through the grace of this earth mama creature called a cow, she digested all of the elemental dosha disturbances and gave them to you in her milk, which she had plenty of, more than her calves could take. But that's not the way dairies are run now. So where's the best butter? It's from Ireland. So you get Kerrygold butter, unsalted. You can get it at Costco. Or you get butter from your local dairy, preferably like that dairy doesn't have 10,000 cows kept in a cage. It has like Traders Point Creamery in Indianapolis has like, you know, I don't know how many cows they have now, like 50 or 100 or something. You can go milk the cows yourself there.
Pierre, I want to share something real quick on the same line of food and digestion. Before I went to Dominican Republic, I was feeling a little bit constipated, and I don't know why it was, maybe because the emotional moment that I was going through. But when I got there and I started eating my food,
Yeah.
I feel like in paradise, eating my favorite food, and then my sister cooked the food for me, and it was just amazing. Then I lose up, like my digestion was like totally okay and normal. And then I said, because I tend to overthink everything. It's okay. Was it the food? Because this is my natural environment, even though I haven't lived there in 22 years. Or is it because I was content and relaxed and with family? And I still
Yeah.
get around which one of the two was that digestion.
Yeah, I appreciate your share, Raquel. And like we learn in Panchakosha, the 5 sheaths, physical, bioenergetic, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual, like 5 layers of the corn husk, you can't separate them. Everyone needs strong digestive fire in order to digest anything. So when I have enough love, safety, and support in my life, I'm much more likely will have strong digestive fire. And if digestive fire is strong, you don't think about it, you know, you're just living the life. Like when I used to play soccer, you know, 2 a day, whatever, I didn't think about what I ate. I could have eaten rocks, you know, when I mountain biked, I ate those bars that are just like dried jerky of a processed thing. It didn't matter though. You know, I had strong enough digestive fire. I was happy. You can eat anything. But it's true that also, Raquel, you are not from here. Like if you all took some kind of a mango tree and tried to plant it there in the front of Santosha, that thing wouldn't do well. But see, our blood and our bodies are also that way. Kathy comes from Pacific Islands, you know, Philippines, you know, these bodies, they grew up in a certain climate environment. And though the human being is so adaptable, we can make it, but how we're making it through the day is not in a good space. We are suffering. So the challenge then, Raquel, for you right now, you're back in US and back in Indianapolis. So how you can cultivate the qualities of your homeland where you live here. It is not easy, but it is definitely can be done. But I appreciate you sharing that. And it's very true. We actually have this wonderful experiment called United States of America. but it requires us to lean on the cultural heritages of the places from which other people came, because we don't have a cultural heritage here. It's a really interesting experiment, you know? And the indigenous people that were here are in some ways the most suffered beings, you know, they were almost exterminated. But the cool thing is we're all learning Ayurveda, which is accessible to all people from all ages throughout time. It's just a gardening, how to garden. So definitely, Raquel, the cold season in Indianapolis will be difficult for you. You know that, right? And so that doesn't, you don't have that season in Dominican, right? It doesn't exist. So
I brought some food with me. I brought cocoa powder, and then I brought some natural raw honey. I say, if I can come here, I bring it with me. So,
yeah, but even more, it means that you have to start planning the life. You live like so many immigrants do. How much of my culture and past do I hold on to, and how much do I grow here where I'm planted? So in this modern era, of course, you can move back and forth somewhat, but you have to prepare. By the time August comes next year, you should already be thinking, what am I going to be doing so that next winter is easier? And as you become older woman, probably it means maybe I think about relocating back to my homeland, or who knows what you decide. Depends on where your own kids are, right? But at least you need to think about, I need to really prepare for winter as if I was a mango tree and I needed a greenhouse. And so that's why Ayurveda is saying you should have a steam tent, you should have steam chamber, you should take sauna. Just putting oil on your skin will help a little, but it's not enough. You need to also do a sweat, you know, afterwards to let those oils bring the nutrients deeper. And then when it comes to food, you know that you need to have loving company around food. And so some of the principles around the food can be the same, but really it's the cultivating that sense of community on a once a week basis, at least, you know, the Sunday night family dinner. We all have to recommit to that in America, because America will rob all of us of that. America is about maximizing profits. And so everything is getting taken away unless we stand up to it. So cool thing about America is it will allow us to stand up to it, right? So we have to have that commitment to family life built in. I think I have time for one more question before you all need to take a break. Kara, you have some question? I don't see you there. I always want to make sure a person I didn't see has a chance to use her voice if you have some question.
I was just wondering, at the
Hi,
beginning,
Hannah.
hi. At the beginning of what you were saying to her, you were saying that if a person doesn't have a lot of emotional support and, you know, being secure and feeling safe, that it's going to affect their digestive fires. Could you explain that some more?
Yeah, so it depends, of course, on the constitution, Hannah. We look at the 5 elements a little different in Ayurveda than in Chinese medicine. I find Ayurveda a lot simpler and easier to grasp. So the progression in density is space, air, fire, water, earth. Space, air, fire, water, earth. Then they organize in 3 ways. And these 3 organizations are like psychophysiological immune buffers. Space and air rule all movement. Fire and water, the interplay of fire and water, rule all transformation. And water and earth rule all structure and lubrication. So a person who has a more space air constitution will already be more prone towards insecurity and a lack of sense of security and safety. They tend to be really thin, have thin skin. They're super sensitive. They're by nature very open to new ideas and creative. They're really good at the expressive and healing arts that are subtle in form. They like to do things like dance, but they're easily prone towards insecurity and lack of safety. Fire water types have a medium-sized body with sharper features. They tend towards inflammatory conditions, and they tend to overthink things because heat rises. They burn the hair off their head. Then water earth types have really strong frames, strong skull, strong shoulders, well-developed sex organs, hair on the chest of a man, larger breasts on a woman. These people are the least insecure. They really have a nice sense of safety. Everyone feels happy to be around Earth Mama or Big Papa. So they don't tend towards as much emotional distress. And they tend to, in many lineages of traditional ethnic cultures, they tend to be the sense of safety and security and wisdom for the whole family. However, any of us can go out of balance in any direction, Hannah. So even Big Mama or Big Papa can become, at the end of life, we all enter the space air phase. The body is drying up. So we look at qualities and gardening qualities. So that Vata dosha or space air combination is called dry, light, cold, clear, subtle, mobile, and rough. So when we do things that increase dry, light, cold, clear, subtle, mobile, or rough, we can create insecurity or instability, anxiety, and it can blow out our digestive fire, no matter what kind of constitution we have. But it will be the worst for that skinny, mini, teeny, tiny person and that person who's then in the older phase of life. So any kind of dry, the desert, the mountains, any kind of light, fasting, insubstantial, too much clear, too much taking water, too much, not having any kind of, a vegan diet, too many salads. All of these things can blow out the digestive fire, create insecurity. Too much subtle can be too many prescription drugs or people that smoke weed or do narcotics. All of these things can create anxiety. The subtle principle gets thrown off. Mobile is the worst one though. So when we relocate, when we're not around where we're planted, or we're not around our normal places, or when we travel by airplane, all of us will deal with Vata dosha. The space air principle has been severely disturbed, and all of us will then have trouble with digestive fire because our whole prana, our energy clock or our chi from the macro grid, we've unplugged from it, moved, and then reconnected in a different place. So our whole bio clock is thrown off. So our whole digestive elimination clock is thrown off. I talk a lot, Hannah. It's like drinking from a water fountain or a fire hose sometimes. So sorry about that. But yes, absolutely. And that's why of all of the practices, as life goes on, the energy practices are the most essential to teach. That's why doing breathing practices or movement with breath is what separates, Qigong and Tai Chi and yoga practice from Western exercise forms. And that's why it's the daily routine built into like the traditional Christian religion, the old style, like keeping the certain periods of time where this practice was done, this fasting was done. It keeps me set with the daily rhythm and the daily clocks and the specific times of the seasons. They help me even physically with my digestive fire.
That's very cool. Well, I'm a Vata and you described me perfectly. So
Okay. Well, it's so nice to see each of you. And remember that when we talk about philosophy, there's sometimes this like excitement and then like, well, how do I go forward with the further learning? The most important thing that I'm sharing with you all is that a commitment to regular community where you gather in the name of God is the most important thing. And doing your practices at home for at least like 5 to 10 minutes in the morning is the most important thing. So trust in time. Usually I ask if anyone has a prayer request, but today I'm going to jump in there myself because my grandmother is in between the worlds. So you can just take a moment and be comfortable. Double breath with tension is twice in the nose, tense your body. Gather in towards your spinal cord, brain, spiritual eye. Trust in God, then twice out the mouth. Divine Mother is this Mother Earth that received the energy of the sun, of the universe, gave us a place to live, fed us, gave us our own bodies. The feminine form is not as openly worshipped in Western Christianity, or I should say maybe Caucasian Christianity, because it is more in Latin America. My grandmother is a Catholic. Mother Teresa, selfless Catholic who worked from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. Can you imagine that? All the way into her 90s, going and collecting food from the bakeries to give to the poor people in the apartments. Nothing was for her. So God bless you, my grand. And safe journey onward. You can take a moment to do your own prayer or repeat after me. Hail Mary, full of grace. The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. So nice to see you all. Take care. Hope to see you again. I'll see you next month, if not sooner. And feel free to get in touch with me personally in between then. Okay? Nice to see you all.